Hello and welcome back to In the Corner. I'm Cash, and today we have episode 73, a huge weekend to talk about. July 19th was one for the books. A ton of crazy stuff happened. It was a very big day for combat sports. Had Oleksandr Usyk knocking out Daniel Dubois in their rematch for Undisputed at Wembley. Manny Pacquiao went the distance with Mario Barrios and had a draw and arguably won the fight at 46. Um, Max Holloway sent Dustin Poirier into retirement with a phenomenal fight in New Orleans. Uh, Bam Rodriguez unified the division and is going to continue to do so on November 22nd. Man, there's just so much to talk about. A lot of other news. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. So we're going to start with what I think is the most important part of this weekend, and that is Usyk. So Usyk Dubois 2 took place on Saturday at Wembley Stadium. I don't know if it was sold out, but it looked just about for the Undisputed Heavyweight Championship. And, I think that we we all agree that this fight heading into it was, at least on paper, going to be more competitive and more compelling than the first fight was heading into it. And the first fight still had its moments, but we all thought Dubois, at least I thought Dubois was gonna have his moment here. I didn't think Dubois would win, but I thought Dubois would have a moment where we'd be like, dang, like he really is still that guy. And listen, I think he still had a good performance. I mean, he came out first bell and was on the front foot, wanting to be aggressive, throwing big shots, and he was landing on Usyk. It's hard to say if he really won a round in there. My prediction initially was Usyk late stoppage. It was actually Usyk mid stoppage. And watching that fight during the first 4 rounds, it was clear, yeah, there's a very good chance this does not go the distance. And it felt like they were both just landing really good shots, but Usyk was getting the better moments where I think Dubois would have a really solid first half of the round. Where like, oh, this one could be Dubois, and then Usyk would just unload in the second half and just do all these just perfect combinations and everything. And it's like, well, that's another round for the champ, you know? And it just kind of felt like, man, like, it's just crazy watching Usyk fight because you're like, is there anybody that can beat this guy? Because Dubois was the last guy where we're like, all right, can he do it? And I mean, dude, when Usyk hit that shot on Usyk, or sorry, when Usyk landed that shot on Dubois in the fifth round, the first one, that sent him down, I was like, okay, fight's over. Like that's it. Like wow, he can maybe get up from that. And I saw the look, and I know people want to call Dubois a quitter. They always have. He's not a quitter. Did you see? Like, I could see the look in his eyes that first knockdown, and how much he was to himself. I have to get up. Like he was determined. Like I could see it. How much he wanted to keep fighting, and he got up, and he pulled through. But that second shot that really like knocked him down, I was like, yeah, I don't know if he can get up from that. And I know people have the problem with him, popping up right when they say 8 or right when they say 10. And you know, when he pops up at 10 and it's like, all right, well, so he was just waiting out the count, he quit. I don't think that he quit. I think that he had he I think that his corner was telling him to stay down, and had he gotten up and kept going, he would have gotten sent back down another 10 seconds and gotten potentially hurt worse. So I think it was the right call for him to get up. And there's a multitude of reasons that are not coming out for why Dubois didn't have the best performance. People calling him a quitter, of course. People saying, how he showed up late to the stadium, showed up with less than 90 minutes before the ring walk. Add in the fact that apparently he had a 70-person party at his house before the fight, which is definitely going to leave him with a lot of regrets. Now, I don't think that Dubois was like drinking or anything at this party and was like that's why he was partying before. I don't think it's like that, but he clearly was not focused the way he needed to be, and he clearly was not locked in and ready to go. And I mean, you see the picture of Usyk in his locker room where it's empty and he's reading in there with all this stuff, with his flag, with his daughter's Eeyore stuffed animal, with his belts in there. Like you just see this man is so focused on this craft, and Dubois didn't show that. He's having a send off party. And I mean, like you just saw in the ring, like Usyk is just a different breed. Like he's just another level of boxer compared to Daniel Dubois. Dubois got the power. That's all shiny. That's all great. And you get big wins and get big moments with him. And he's still a top 5 heavyweight in this generation in the world right now. but Oleksandr Usyk is above this generation. He is so much better than everybody else at heavyweight. It's like so clear. I, I don't even know what you. I mean, honestly, like I feel like he has to retire just because there's nothing left for him to do. But also, I want to keep watching him fight. He's still the best in the world. He's not retiring because his time has left him. No, it's because there's just nothing else for him to do. He's just sticking around collecting paychecks, just embarrassing everyone else and looking like an absolute all-time great, and that's what he is. He's easily the number one. I've been bouncing around in my head, as everyone else has for last year. Usyk, Crawford, in a way, who's number one. Right now, it is so clearly it has to be Oleksandr Usyk. He's the best boxer and the best fighter in the world right now, and it's honestly just an honor to get to watch him live. Um, as for what's next, I think it's very clear Usyk Parker is the next move. Joseph Parker is being called. Excuse me. Being called as the WBO mandatory challenger for the heavyweight crown. He's been interim champion for almost 2 years. I think that he deserves that crack, and everyone else wants to see him get into the title scene. And uh, yeah, that's gonna be what's next. If it's not Usyk fighting Parker, then the WBO is gonna get vacated, and Parker will fight somebody else for that number one spot. I know Turki Al Sheikh said he wants to see Usyk versus Moses Atauma, and I honestly think that the reason for that is that you have to start looking into different things, because like, well, as much as I love Parker and as much as I want to see him get the big fight and get the title shot, he's not going to beat Usyk. You need to look into things. All right, who can? Who's fast enough to compete with Usyk? Itauma is. I saw somebody say that Jao Pitaya is also fast enough, even though he's not a heavyweight. You need somebody that's not just your standard 260, 70-pound bulldozer, because Usyk can just outbox you and outmove you. So I don't really know. I don't really want to see Usyk Itauma. I think it's too early for Itauma, and I think that Usyk's got the Parker fight, and that could be it. That could be it. He mentioned, a Fury trilogy, an AJ trilogy, which is not going to happen. A Chisora rematch, which I don't want to see happen. Even the Fury trilogy, I don't really need to see. But if they do it, I won't be mad. I just think that Parker should come first, and maybe he retires fighting Fury after Fury has a win. After Fury comes back and fights somebody else. So we'll see. But yeah, man, it was just incredible. As for that undercard, it was terrible. It was terrible. Lawrence Okoli sucked. He was so boring. He outboxed Kevin Lorena. He won every round pretty much, but it was just a really poor performance, especially when he's trying to get a fight, with maybe Ajit Kabayel and demand that he's a top 10 heavyweight and all this stuff. That's not how you make a big statement when you're given the opportunity to fight in the co-main event at Wembley. It was really, really boring, and you could just feel the energy in the stadium getting, just sucked out from that performance. Before that, you had Daniel Labin versus Lewis Edmondson, which actually ended off being a lot better than it was. It started off pretty boring, and then at the end it was interesting. Lapin got the decision. He was really close. I think most people, including myself, agree that Edmondson probably deserved it. Maybe a draw, but it probably should have gone the way of Edmondson. It was a close fight, so I'm not that mad, but I do think Edmondson deserved it. I thought that, Lapin was definitely tired, but also Edmondson was like pushing him over the ropes like that, like completely pushing him the second time, and nothing happened. So I was a little bit disappointed there, but yeah, that was an okay fight. But I don't think either of those guys do well at the anything above the level they're fighting at right now. Then you've got Solomon Dakers outboxing Vladislav Serenko. That was pretty surprising because you remember Serenko was coming in here kind of as an unknown, undefeated heavyweight, meant to fight Andrei Novitsky in a fight he probably would have lost, and that was kind of what was meant to happen. And then Novitsky gets injured. They bring in Dakers, who I think we all just kind of forgot what he was like. He was a pretty decent prospect before the Adelaide fight. Going into the Adelaide fight, everyone thought that was like a 50-50 almost. Gets knocked down one round, and then we would forget about him. So I was reminded, oh, yeah, this guy does have some pretty good abilities. And he showed really, really good class in there. And again, I don't know if he's ever going to be a world champion or anything like that, but he's definitely now re-entered that British title scene where you can put him in there with Fraser Clark or Jimmy TKV, whoever wins that, or, Dave Allen is there. Like, I don't know. I think that he is back in that mix a bit. So it's interesting. But yeah, moving on from that huge event and huge win for Oleksandr Usyk, let's move on to Las Vegas, where Manny Pacquiao and Mario Barrios fought to a draw. And I just want to say, hats off to Pacquiao, man. comes in after 3 years of retirement, maybe four, you know, 46 years of age, into a world title fight with a man who was much bigger than him. The size difference in there was unbelievable. I have to think Pacquiao probably was like 150 in that ring. Marios was like 170. I mean, he was like 6 inches taller than him, so much bigger, and I honestly think that was probably what gave Barrios as much success as he did, was being able to use his power advantage, just by being so much bigger than him. The shots that Barrios was landing looked like they affected. They moved Pacquiao's head more than Pacquiao shots on Barrios. Um, I think Barrios actually may have outlanded him as well, but it was just the precision of Pacquiao and the speed and seeing how he did it in his combinations that was so impressive to me, and to the judges. I found that it was a very hard fight to score. And I think that was scorecards were all over the board. I remember being on Twitter and seeing somebody saying after 8 rounds, "Oh, this is 7-3," or sorry, this is 5-3 Pacquiao. And somebody else saying this is 8-4 Barrios. And I'm like, man, like this is just really hard to score. Every round felt like it could go either way. So when you got to the end, I knew that whatever decision happened was not going to be satisfied with most people. It seems like most people are in the camp that Pacquiao deserved it. I actually did score it a draw. Granted, my scorecard was very, very, hard. I mean, it's there. There's about 7 swing rounds in that fight where you can say, oh, it goes to this person or this person. It was so close, and that's why it made it such an interesting fight. As for what's next, I kind of do want to see a rematch. Pacquiao said, they asked him, "Do you think you'll fight again?" And he said, "Yeah, I think I will," which is just crazy. So if we see that again, I'd have no complaints. And then, maybe Pacquiao gets the decision second time around. If I'm being honest, I don't think that Pacquiao gets the decision against Barrios, uh, especially a rematch. I feel like after this fight, Pacquiao did much better than anyone anticipated, and Barrios did worse than most people anticipated. I mean, we always know that Barrios is, of the world champions right now currently, he's definitely in the bottom tier of that. And he's not all that great, but I do think that he had things that he could improve on in his game before a potential rematch. And, and I don't know. I do feel like if they were to rematch, Barrios would probably get it. But who knows, man? I mean, could you imagine? And we were so close to it happening. It sucks. I think this fight, there really needed to be a winner. To either say, like, yeah, good job to Pacquiao, but it's just not your time anymore. Or if Pacquiao were to win, to be like, holy crap, man, he's still got it, you know? And he's now world champion. Could you imagine if we're talking about, all right, who's the world champs at 147? You got Rolly Romero there. You've got the IBF is vacant here. You've got Brian Norman over there. And then you got Manny Pacquiao here. I mean, could you imagine Pacquiao's in the mix there? Like, it's just unbelievable. It is just so unbelievable what he did on Saturday night, and I'm so impressed. Disappointed in Barrios, of course. Um, yeah, so I'd like to see a rematch probably. And if that doesn't happen, then let's see Barrios versus Rolly or something like that. Um, Co-main event there, Sebastian Fundora and Tim Tszyu, very, very odd fight. Much more one-sided than the first. The first one was so competitive, and going into this one, it was so hard to call, but I was probably leaning towards Fundora just because of what has happened to both since then. And I think they were seeing that first fight really kind of scarred Tim Tszyu, and I don't even know if it was that or the Baccaram fight. It may have been more the Baccaram fight because he never got hurt against Fundora. He just got cut and couldn't really, and that worsened his performance. Where I feel that night in March 2024, if Tszyu doesn't get cut, he maybe wins that fight. I do. It was so close, and I think that, you know, Tszyu was winning up until the cut. I do think that he wins the fight without the cut. But that's why I was like, oh, they rematch, maybe Tszyu wins. But this time around, I don't know, man. I mean, you see Tszyu get stopped by Bakram Murtazaliev and beaten so badly. And then here you just kind of see the residuals of that where he gets dropped in the first round. It's like, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. And then for the rest of the fight, Tim Tszyu gets more competitive as it goes on. Fedor was beating him up good for the first like 4 rounds, and then it started to go a little bit more into Tszyu's favor. Still competitive, but Tszyu was starting to win rounds. And then I think it was the 7th round where Tszyu, again, still competitive. It was a phenomenal round from both guys, but Tszyu edged it. And it was his best round of the fight. And then after that, he quits on the stool. And again, we just talked about Dubois quitting, and while this is quitting because he's in the corner and choosing, I do not want to fight anymore, I respect it. I respect why he quit. And when they did the post-fight interview, they went straight to Tszyu. And he essentially said, they're like, well, you quit at a pretty good point in the fight for you. And he's like, pretty much, he said, I gave him everything I had. And he saw in that seventh round that, yeah, he had some success, but this guy's not going anywhere. I'm giving him everything I have and doing well, and he's not going anywhere, and he's hitting me back. I cannot beat him. I'm not going to stand here for another 15 minutes and collect brain damage. I cannot beat him, and I'm done. And I kind of respect that. And he obviously didn't say it like that. He just said he's tough as heck. And that's true. Fedor is very, very tough, and he's very, very strong. He's a heavy hitter. But um, I did really respect Zeus saying, I can't beat this guy, man. Like, I've given him everything I can, and I can't do it, so I'm done. Um, I'm going to live to fight another day. So I loved that. I think it was the right call. I think that Fedor I've had my doubts about him just because of, him getting stopped by Mendoza a couple years back, and then the first Zoo fight being a little bit controversial with the cut. The inactivity, and then the Booker fight, which was a poor opponent choice. So he hasn't had the most stellar run, but he has been now on a very good run in these last three fights with three good wins, regardless of the circumstances. This last one was, again, you can even say, oh, well, Zoo just quit, but Fedor has been looking really, really good. And you kind of have to question, is he the number one guy at 154 pounds? Hold Crawford, who's up at 168 right now. Bakar Murtazaliev is there. Virgil Ortiz is there. Sergey Boachuk is there. I mean, we've got so many good guys in this division. For me, the fight to make that I would like to see is probably Fedor versus Murtazaliev, just because I think they are 1-2, and I think that they're also both really long fighters, and so that could be a lot of fun. But there's so many good matchups at 154. I mentioned Ortiz. That'd be brilliant. Or Boachuk has been talked about. Xander Zayas, revisiting that if he beats Jorge Garcia. I mean, there's just a lot of really fun stuff to do in that division, and I was blown away by Fedor and Zoo. As for Zoo, probably go back to the Keith Thurman route, try and get that fight finally. You also have Jermall Charlo there. Just try and do, or Jamel Charlo, I think. I can never remember which one's which. But just try and, still get good fights, but I don't know if we see Zoo back at world level if he's not able to stick it out for the fight. Also on that card, you Isaac Cruz beating Omar Salcido. He looked pretty good, was very dominant. Salcido actually did a decent job of staying away from Pitbull and boxing well, but he's just a dog. Cruz is just a dog, man. And he's now WBC interim champion after a 10-round fight, which is ridiculous, but that puts him in line to fight Subriel Matias, Dalton Smith winner. Yeah, he's got some good fights there. I've been saying for the longest time, I would love to see Pitbull versus William Zepeda. I know they're now at different weight classes. If Zepeda moves up to 140, man, would that be something else. But we'll see what happens with him. Brandon Figueroa beat Joet Gonzalez in a very close fight. A fight most people had Joet Gonzalez winning. I had it a draw, but if I were to lean it to anyone who would definitely be Gonzalez, I wouldn't give Figueroa the win. It was close, so I'm not mad. I'm not screaming robbery, but I didn't score it that way. And I do kind of feel for Joet Gonzalez because this is one time of many where he's been so close and then just kind of gotten, bad luck. But who knows, who knows. I'd like to see Joet Gonzalez fight somebody like Mirko Cuello, but we'll see what happens next with all those guys. And you had the return of Gary Russell Jr., who had a really good performance for most of the fight against Castaneda, dropped him really early, and then in the middle rounds lagged a bit where he started to lose some rounds, but then got back on top, and then waited until the 10th where he stopped him. And I was really impressed for him to do that after being out of the ring for 3.5 years, not having won in 5. Good fighter, man. Good fighter. And I wonder if he really is back for good. Obviously, not the best opponent, but it is what it is. You had David Picasso versus Kaionosuke Kameda. Picasso had a rough start, and it was a tight fight. It was a fun, very, very fun fight. But Picasso got the decision, which he deserved. Not the performance that demands give me Inoue now. I'm that guy. I think that we're all seeing that. We're like, oh, man, Inoue's going to give this guy lots of problems. And don't really know if he really deserves that fight now. But he did get the win, and that's all you got to do is just keep on winning, I guess. Then you also had Mark Magsayo as well, collect a good win in a very fun fight over Jorge Mata. Also this weekend, you had Max Holloway beating Dustin Poirier. What a fight that was. They didn't get fight of the night honors, which everyone's seen the clip now of Max Holloway calling him BS. It's hilarious. And it is because Vittori Allen was good, but I thought the Kevin Holland fight was better than that as well. You know, um, but anyways, I had a lot of fun with that main event. I thought that Dustin still fought pretty well, and he had his moments. And hey, he dropped Max and almost hurt him, and almost stopped him. It was going to be crazy. And that round, I think it was the second or third, was just incredible, and it was a great fight. But Max is the BMF, and I think we all kind of expected this. We all expected that Max Holloway would probably get the win over Dustin Poirier just because of where they're both at right now. And I think that it's honestly good for the UFC because had Poirier won, it would have been like, oh, well, now he retires on a high and he's the BMF, so what do we do? But this way, you get to send Poirier off into retirement with a war and a great performance and a very respectful ending, while also giving Max Holloway a win and now injecting him back into that top five scene at lightweight, where he's now in discussion for the title, and people are already saying, "Does this Max beat Ilya?" And I'm like, "All right, let's not get ahead of ourselves." So, no, I do not think so, but I do think Max Holloway can get in there with the Paddy the Baddies, the Armin Sarukians, the Justin Gaethjes, because we know he's already iced Justin Gaethje, so he's back in that mix as the BMF, and yeah, man, it was a really really fight. Also on that card, you had Paulo Costa putting in a really impressive performance, beating Roman Kopylov versus by unanimous decision. That was really, really cool to see. I wasn't expecting him to win that fight, and he looked great in it. Daniel Rodriguez edging out a win over Kevin Holland. It was close, but and Kevin Holland had a great third round. It was a really fun fight, but D-Rod just take both the first rounds. Patricio Pitbull mostly dominated Dan Ige. Not anything crazy, but the UFC win that he needed. Michael Johnson upsetting Daniel Zellhuber was pretty crazy. Vinicius Oliveira beating Kyler Phillips was a good one. Brendan Allen and Marvin Vettori was fun, but again, it was kind of one-sided for most of it. Um, what else? You had the Ateba Gautier. His first round finish was great. Adam Fujit's first round finish. Jimmy Crute's first round. I mean, they were all. I mean, like there was about six first round finishes in a row, and they were all just like crazy, man. I think it was Jimmy Crute and Bruno Ferreira. I think both had armbar finishes. Um, just wild stuff, man. Really, really fun fight card. It was interesting where the first half of the fights were all finishes and the second half were all decisions. But I enjoyed it a lot. It was a great send off for New Orleans. One of the best cards they've delivered this year. Um, yeah, dude, it was a lot of fun. You also had Jesse Rodriguez beating Fumalele Kafu via 10th round TKO. Good stoppage, came at the right time. Kafu had, I think I gave him one round maybe, but Bam just showed like he's just such an elite fighter, and Kafu was okay, but and he had an interesting game plan, but there's just not much you can do when you're in with a true pound for pound great of the sport, and Bam is that. Bam is kind of like that guy. So hats off to him, and the big issue this week was just worrying is can Bam get out of this fight okay, and he did, and so it looks like we're all ready to go for November 22nd, where he's got another unification waiting for him against Puma Martinez. So that will now be for the WBC, WBA, Ring Magazine, and WBO 115 titles, as Bam now holds that. Also on that bill, you had Diego Pacheco beating Trevor McCumbee in a fight that, let's be honest, was pretty underwhelming. We all kind of thought that Pacheco was going to, you know, have a little bit more fun in there. And same with McCumbee. I was expecting more from him too. I was expecting much more action in that fight. Pacheco still dominated. He still had a good win, but it just wasn't the win that's, give me Canelo. And I'm seeing everyone now and saying like, yo, let's do Shiraz Pacheco. They both had two pretty good wins back to back. Both big guys for the weight, but both long, tall guys. Makes a lot of sense for a potential 5v5 between Queensberry Matchroom. Fight in the meantime. Winner gets Canelo. I know that Turkey really wants Shiraz to fight Canelo in February. If he wants that, then we may have to wait for a bit to see, who ends up getting Canelo, because I don't know if Shiraz wants to wait, out in the wings for that long. But this is how it goes, and like I said, Turkey wants to see Canelo versus Shiraz in February. Meanwhile, the WBC, Marcio Suleiman says that Christian and Billy versus Hamza Shiraz will be next for the WBC interim super middleweight title, with Shiraz being number one there and Billy being the interim champion. So I think that fight makes sense too. You just got all these guys at 168 now that are, again, all ready for the Canelo sweepstakes, and we've got to kind of ration them out. Where before we had Benavidez and Morel, who never got it, But then you had Munguia and Berlanga, and there was just these like list of contenders, and they were all waiting for their shot one by one. And now we've got that next crop of guys. We got Billy, and then Shiraz, and then Pacheco, and I want to see them fight each other because that's something that we didn't see. We didn't see Munguia versus Berlanga in the meantime. I want to see that this time. I want to see these guys fight, and hopefully we can see that. We also had the PFL Cape Town card, the first one in Africa. I enjoyed the undercard with all the African fights. Thought there was some fun ones to be had there. Some interesting tournament fights. There was a lot of like dirty moves, I thought, which was interesting. Like a lot of low blows and kneeing and just a lot of crazy stuff that happened. But go to the main card. Corey Anderson stopping Denis Goltsov in round 2 was unexpected but impressive. Artur Zainukov dominating Takeshi Izumi. AJ McKee getting a really solid win over Akhmed Magomedov was cool. Dakota Ditcheva, I thought that she was fighting in a 5-rounder for the title. That didn't happen, but she did beat up Sumiko Inaba, who gave a pretty good fight, but Ditcheva was just a little bit more aggressive in there, and it's just a really, really strong talent, and she got the win unanimously. And then you had Johnny Eblen losing to Castelo Vancinas after winning almost all of the fight. Started to turn a little bit in the fourth. Vancinas got competitive. And then with like 9 seconds, I think it was on the clock, Vancinas submits him. Gets on his back and chokes him out. Unbelievable. And it was actually one of those where Eblen didn't even tap. It was just that the ref picked up his arm and he was out. Crazy, crazy stuff. No part of me was expecting Vancinas to win this fight, especially with how it was going just 5 minutes earlier in the fight. I thought that was it. But man, like really, really impressive for him, and he, upsets Johnny Eblen in the first or the second, I guess, Champion Series event, and yeah, he's now the champion there. So really, really good stuff, and it was overall a solid card. We don't know when the next PFL Champion Series event is, and I'm really waiting on that because that's my favorite thing that they're doing besides maybe the World Tournament. I don't care too much for stuff like the Africa or the MENA tournament. I actually do like the Europe tournament just because I feel like all those events this year have been a lot of fun and they've had great cards. But just regardless of only the tournament, I think that they've just had fun stuff with Paul Hughes and whatnot. But I do kind of like seeing these PFL Champion Series events, which are more in the vein of what Bellator was. But yeah, so it was a lot of really great fights, and it was a very fun day on Saturday. Very busy day, but very fun day. So let's move on from there, and let's talk about some other news we have got broken in the last, 72 hours. Josh Taylor has retired from the sport of boxing at 34. Former undisputed super lightweight champion. This comes off of 3 back-to-back losses with only 1 fight a year. Arguably 4 back-to-back losses, as you had the Jack Catterall, the first fight. Most people thought that he lost, and then he goes into the Teofimo Lopez, loses for the first time there. Then it's Jack Catterall rematch, and he loses that one. And then it's Echo Esmond, the Queensberry debut. He's got to get this one. It's a tough fight, but it's one he should be able to get past, and he doesn't. And that was where really everyone started talking about retirement more seriously. Like, okay, he couldn't beat Echo Esmond, who's not even world level. Maybe he is now, but what do we do with Josh Taylor? What is next for him after this? Is it a Jack Catterall trilogy? Is it another kind of step down in level? Because you went from world title fight to British grudge match to, or world level grudge match, and then to British title fight, and then now we're what? Like, would he actually fight? And then like Adam Azim is the kind of fight that was going to be discussed next. And so I'm not mad at him retiring. Again, while he's still got all of his stuff, while he's still in good health, you can call it early. You're not going to be world champion again. You haven't really convincingly won a fight since 2021. Yeah, it's probably time. So I think that was the good call. And yeah, good luck to him in retirement. And we won't get to see the Jack Catterall trilogy, but I don't think that was really necessary. And yeah, that's it for Taylor. Moving on from that, we have the Devin Haney, Brian Norman stuff with VADA. Apparently, Brian Norman was not wanting to start VADA until August 1st for whatever reason, saying he's on vacation, which is a little bit suspect, saying, hey, man, like, if you're not going to be ready now, why are you going to be ready in 2 weeks? Like, what are you waiting on? So I did think that it was good of Devin Haney to try and force him to start, and apparently he has started. which is good because again, it is a little bit suspect to say, "Oh, I don't. Can I start then? Like, why can't you start now? You're not clean right now." So we'll see. I'm not saying that Brian Norman is not a clean athlete. I'm not saying that at all. But yeah, this is how it goes in boxing. If you can't do it right now, you're gonna get those kind of questions. Um, so it is definitely an interesting subplot to be following with that fight. Saudi Arabia is now considering yet again to stage the Eubank Ben rematch in November in London. I saw Eddie Hearn says that he thinks there's a 10% chance the fight takes place in 2025, which is just disappointing because apparently it was like announced and like confirmed they hadn't signed the contract yet, which I don't understand why you would make it official if you hadn't actually made it official yet. So just poor announcement there from Ring Magazine. And I think it's so funny how Ring reports everything like it's breaking news, talking about Ring is now or Riyadh Season is now considering staging the rematch in London in November. And it's like, bro, why are you guys like reporting just on your own indecisiveness? Like, let all that happen behind the scenes. We don't need an update on if you want to do it or not. Because it's breaking, no longer involved. Breaking, considering. It's like, it's just ridiculous. Turki Al-Sheikh has revealed that Jake Paul accepted a 99-1 split in favor of Anthony Joshua. I don't know if that's a joke or if he really did take that. It wouldn't surprise me either way because Turkey does like to joke, but also it wouldn't surprise me if Jake has enough money for him to say, yeah, he can have a 99-1 split. I don't care. I just want to fight him. And, seeing Jake on Saturday at Wembley walk across and shake Turkey's hand and talk about on the interview saying like, yeah, I could fight AJ here. I mean, we were talking 3-4 years ago about doing Jake Paul versus KSI at Wembley. Now, before we get that, we're going to be seeing Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua at Wembley. And should they fight, that is the place to do it. You could do it in Saudi Arabia too. That'd be pretty fun. But doing it at Wembley Stadium would be nuts. I mean, they hate Jake Paul over there and really everywhere. And especially with an AJ crowd, oh man, it would be crazy. Because, look, as much as I do not hate Jake Paul, and I am a fan of some of the stuff he does, there's no way he walks out of the ring with Anthony Joshua. He gets knocked out. There's just no way. He's jumping way too far ahead, but guys, I'm really starting to think that somehow this is the next fight. Now that the heavyweight division has been sorted out, maybe everything falls in place. AJ gets a fight against Dubois or something like that, maybe. But there's a chance that Jake Paul is waiting, and we're gonna see his big fight at the end of the year be against AJ, and AJ is waiting for and AJ's down to fight Jake Paul, and it seems like Eddie Hearn is fine with it, and Turkey's on with it, so this could really be what happens. And by the way, this is a perfect fight to put on Netflix because Netflix only wants to put on huge fights, and if Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua gets put onto their table, they're taking it. So be prepared. There won't even be a pay-per-view, but I'm really starting to think that could be what's next. Dana White says that they will not be allowing Jon Jones to fight on the White House card because they can't risk putting him in big positions and something goes wrong. You know what? This is what you get, man. This is what you get for all the years of Boy Cried Wolf, who's, pushing off the UFC and stuff, saying, all your controversies, beating the wife, doing the drug, doing the PEDs, everything, and just like delaying the fight with Tom Aspinall, all this stuff. Like, you lose the opportunity to get to be a part of stuff because they can't trust you. You're not reliable. You're a hazard, to put on these events, to put on to represent it all. And for him to say, "Oh yeah, I'm retiring, I'm leaving the testing pool," just to less than 2 weeks later jump back in, and Dana says, "Yeah, I know he's in the testing pool, yeah, but he's not getting the Aspinall fight then." Also, because you better not think that you're making Tom Aspinall wait another year to fight on July 4th, 2026. Now, Aspinall is getting a fight as soon as they can give him one, probably in October. And it's not going to be against you. You missed your shot. Misfits have announced their first MMA fight for the light heavyweight title in Misfits MMA. Dylan Dennis versus Warren Spencer, and this will take place on their big August 30th pay-per-view. At first when this got announced, I was like, okay, this is cool. I wonder what the undercard will be like. They've added this. They added Joey Essex, who's a big UK reality star. He's fighting Numero. I'm not really familiar with either one of those guys much, but I have heard Misfits talk a lot about Joey Essex in the past, saying that they want to get him on a card. So I think that he could be a big name for their more YouTube side of things. But dude, Tony Ferguson versus Saul Poppy, Darren Till versus Luke Rockhold, and now Dylan Dennis. Wow, against Warren Spencer, who has had some really, really good performances on Misfits boxing. Haven't seen him in MMA yet, on Misfits at least. I know he's friends with like the Tate brothers, and as much as we all hate Dylan Dennis, he is a good promoter for this kind of thing, and he works well in Misfits. And seeing him in MMA finally, where he's terrible at boxing, but we could see him in MMA, and you have to think that he probably wins. This is his first MMA fight in what, like 5 years or something? I don't know, but I'm looking forward to this a lot, and this just this just got a lot crazier for August 30th, and I'm really curious how it's gonna work. We're gonna see MMA in a boxing ring, I guess, and we have kind of seen this before, where you have events with both, and it is weird, but it'll work, and it's just gonna be really funny because it's Misfits, and they always have this stuff work out in a very funny manner. UFC 319, the card was put up on the broadcast at 318, and interestingly enough, usually if they don't have all the cards shorted, they'll just put 5 fights on there regardless, and then shuffle it around later. But they had the co-main event listed as TBA versus or TBD versus TBD, meaning that they are not going to put Jared Cannonier or MVP or any other fight on that card in the co-main slot. They are waiting because they have something big coming. They're actually going to get a big co-main event. The rumor has been Paddy versus Justin Gaethje, but that still hasn't been announced yet. We are about a little bit over 3 weeks away from that date, so we do need an announcement for that ASAP. But it does seem like we're going to get a really good fight on 319 for the co-main event, one that is worthy of being called the co-main event. And yeah, I'm very hopeful that that is Paddy versus Gaethje, because I love that fight, and it makes the lightweight division a lot more clear. Even if it's Arman versus Paddy, Arman versus Gaethje, whatever it is, yeah, should be good. Callum Smith versus David Morrell has been ordered for the WBO interim light heavyweight title. Obviously, Callum Smith holds this title. He did kind of duck Benavidez or wanted more money, and they wouldn't give it to him. So he still is going to get a good fight here. I hope that this gets made. I think it's a really good fight in the light heavyweight division. I think that these guys are both top 10. I think that Morrell is coming off of the loss to Benavidez and then what should have been a loss against Kataev. So it is definitely a must win for him. If he loses, it's time to question, okay, is this guy really meant for world level? When before we were saying he could be a future pound for pounder, and now just a year ago this time, and now we're talking about if he deserves to be in the conversation for a light heavyweight title at all. But here, I mean, he's going with the tough Callum Smith, but it's also a winnable fight for him. And if he wins, then it's like, oh yeah, all right, he's the guy. Same with Callum Smith, he kind of put to bed like the washed, talk against Buatsi, but he's gonna have to show it again here against Morrell, who's a tougher fight than Buatsi. So I really like it. I think this is a really, really good ordering by the WBO and a fight that we need in that division right now. We know Beterbiev Bivol to 3. You've got Benavidez Yard, and now you've got Smith Morrell in gear. So hopefully it gets made, and I think that it's a very, very solid fight. Zurdo Ramirez just posted that he is undergoing shoulder surgery after his fight with Uniel Dorticos. This one really blows, and that's mainly just because I felt like we were so close to getting a Jai Opetaia fight. I don't know how long he's going to be out for. Hopefully they can get this fight still by the end of the year, and it's just the longer that we wait, I feel like it's more likely that the IBF is going to pull some BS and order Jai to fight some random 8-0 guy from Ghana. Like, I don't even know. Like, they're just going to order the most random fight. And I really, really don't want to see that happen. I really need to see this. It's the best fight in the division. We've been waiting on it for so long. And right when everything seems like it's going to happen, each time something gets in the way. And I just hope Zurdo can recover quickly. And yeah, man, I'm hopeful. The IBF, speaking of them, have formally ordered Bakar Murtazaliev to defend his title against Erickson Lubin. Lubin won the Eliminator against Holmes in May. We haven't seen Murtazaliev since he beat Tim Tszyu almost a year ago. It's time to get back into action. There was talks about a fight with Bakram versus Josh Kelly, potentially on the Canelo Crawford card. That seems like it's now been pushed away, and we already heard that PBC was looking to make this fight, and now it's been ordered. It seems all the more likely it's going to happen. Hopefully they still get it in by the end of the year. I think that they will. And yeah, I think it's a solid fight. Obviously, I think Bakram wins, but Erickson Lubin did earn it in his Eliminator win against RJL Holmes Jr., so yeah, let's run it. Speaking of Canelo Crawford, Turkey says that they've already sold 85% of the tickets, which is really surprising to me because it's just been on sale for about a week, and I saw the prices, and they were, like, crazy. Like, this is, like, the lower deck, so still, like, really good seats, but they were, like, $1,000. I was like, oof, have fun selling that. but apparently they're selling really well. According to Turkey, which again he could be lying, but I don't understand. It'd be kind of hard to lie about something like that, and he wouldn't say it unless it was true. So, uh, they're gonna sell it out, which I kind of expected, but still, I'm just surprised that they are selling this quickly at that price. So very very interesting, and yeah, I cannot wait for that, and it's gonna be crazy. Clarissa Shields has offered Layla Ali $15 million for a fight, so she really wants this. All because at Taylor Serrano 3, they interviewed Layla Ali and they asked her if she would come back, and she was like, "Hey, maybe with all this money getting thrown around for women now." And so Clarissa Shields was like, "I'll fight her." When before she's like Savannah Marshall, Shadiza Green, But then you get thrown in with Layla Ali, who hasn't fought in like what 10 years. She's like, "Oh, sign me up." And honestly, I'm not even mad if she fights her just because of how dry the opponents are for Shields. I mean, she's fighting Lanny Daniels this weekend, who is a world champion, but no offense, Clarissa Shields is going to walk through. There's not that many competitive fights for her. The only one that isn't a rematch left is Shadasia Green, and that one should probably be next. I wouldn't be mad if Layla Ali came back and fought, because we're seeing that a lot nowadays. We're seeing older fighters come back and fight just for title fights and still be competitive. So I really would not even be mad if she came back and fought, but who knows what'll happen there. And then lastly, we'll finish off with the rumored UK schedule for Matchroom Boxing. We know that they had a show for Newcastle that was meant to be on August 9th. It's now apparently been pushed back to September 6th, which is not surprising because it's a little bit over 2 weeks away and there was no announcement for it. But that's going to feature Pat McCormack as well as uh, Dickinson versus Williamson, which is an interesting fight for the English, I think. Cameron Vaughn, Adam Malka on that. And then Windsor Park in Ireland on September 13th is the rumor to see Crocker Donovan 2. Good to know that we're going to probably get a stadium for that because it deserves one. And yeah, and also to see it's going to happen relatively soon. Unfortunately, that is the same day as Canelo versus Crawford, which I think is a little bit of poor scheduling. Is you probably don't want to do that, and I'm sure that Eddie Hearn is, if he has any fighter on that Canelo Crawford card, he won't be at Windsor Park. So I'd probably not want to schedule it on the same day, but it is what it is. It won't be at the same time at least. And then on Sheffield on October 11th, you'll have Dave Allen headlining a card. It seems. We know that Junaid Boston Bilal Fawaz too, and George Liddell, Kieran Conway are going to be on that. That was already said by the British Boxing Board of Control. But to know that Dave Allen will probably be headlining that is interesting. And I'm curious against who. I know that they were a little bit upset that he didn't get the Jimmy TKV fight for the British, and that apparently TKV had agreed to that fight when they sent an offer for it, and he immediately said yes. So he did not duck. They made that very clear. He was down for it, which is always good and respectful to see. But Boxer was the one who kind of let it go radio silent and never organized it. So it is. They're waiting for Clark to get orders. And I don't know. I don't know who we see Dave Allen fight now because it felt like it should have been one of those two guys. But he's already been lost to Fraser Clark. So I don't really know. But that's all I've got for today. Thank y'all so much for listening. And it's not going to be Dave Allen versus Deontay Wilder. Let's be real. But that's everything that I have. We've got another pretty good fight week coming up. You've got UFC Abu Dhabi on Saturday, as well as Ryan Garner, Reese Bellotti. I don't know why I always get their names mixed up. You got Xander Zayas getting his world title crack against Jorge Garcia, and then you also have Clarissa Shields defending her titles against Lanny Daniels. That should be fun. And then you've also got this week you got a Golden Boy Fight Night on Thursday. You've got BKFC Fight Night on Friday. The next OTX card headlined by Elijah Pierce and O'Shea Jones, which I'm going to be in attendance for on Friday night. It's going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, so it's going to be another really solid weekend of fights. And thank y'all so much for listening, and peace out.